All right, we are back to the Workplace Wonder Lessons from the Experts. It has been a couple weeks. I have been dealing with some school stuff, which is always interesting. It seems like it comes in waves, all the different types of work that I have to do and all the writing. I think I saw yesterday an email from Grammarly, which is like a grammar editing software, and it helps me make sure I'm not uh, writing in ways that are completely unprofessional. And I think I saw that in the last month, I've written over 1 million words, which is insane to think about. But it's been a busy month, so I'm sorry if anybody's missed the show, but you can always find the show on podcast form in any of the places that you like to listen to podcasts: Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all of that stuff. The podcasts live there. I am excited for today. We have a great guest who is really doing some interesting work, has some interesting ideas, and to me, a lot of ideas that make a ton of sense and really bring a sense of personal identity to the workplace, and or as I believe she likes to call it, ownership to the workplace, personal ownership. So today I have Niki Avraam on the show, and we'll be talking about creating an ownership culture. Welcome, Nikki.
Hello.
I didn't butcher your last name, right? Avraam.
Avraam. It's all
Okay.
good. Yeah.
All right. Close, right? So welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. And we just had a lovely little conversation for about 10 minutes or so. And so I'm even more excited now to talk to you. So if you'd like, feel free to introduce yourself. Like I said to you before we started, I prefer our guests to be able to bring their own bio to the show and to be able to touch on the points that are important to them. So please, Nikki, introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, I was trying to bore you with that, wasn't I, behind the scenes? But you quite rightly said, save it for the show for our listeners. So I'll try not to go into too much of a monologue, because it feels like the description of what I do, who I am, seems to change these days on a daily basis. It's a kaleidoscope. So I'm an employment and discrimination lawyer by trade. I have a firm that I started 10 years ago. It's called Howat Avraam, and we're based in London. And before that, I built employment and discrimination law departments within larger firms. I think you call it big law over here. We call it magic circle in the UK, but it wasn't in kind of massive. It was sort of mid-size, but that's what I was doing. I was building, and it was like quite an entrepreneurial journey through law. I would describe it, an unconventional journey. And I was saying to you behind the scenes that I have become rather obsessed with various questions and concepts around leadership, mindset, future workforce. And I'm very focused on those at the moment. Like, how do we shape the workforce for the future? What do people need to do in order to feel invigorated by work? Because we all deserve that. And
Sure.
What can leaders and organizations do to cultivate that? And that's really what's led to this talk and this focus on ownership culture, because I think having agency and ownership in the way that we work is just so very important for so many reasons that we can go into. So yeah, I told you I'd go into a monologue, but
I'm a sucker for a good monologue. I appreciate any monologues you want to give. I enjoy it all, and I'll pull out any nuggets that I can. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. This is something in terms of leadership and organizational and workplace culture. I am a nerd for. I totally geek out over this stuff, and to the point where I've decided to go for my doctorate in leadership psychology, because I'm just so interested in this topic, and that's what started me on this journey. I think it was 2020 is when I started my master's in leadership, and now just this year starting the doctorate. And it's this topic. There's something about it that I think we recognize on a cultural level, that how often human beings are at work, and the impact that workplace culture has on us as human beings and on our mental health and our ability to see the rest of the world around us, that is so inspired to try to understand better, and then try to understand how to fix it or how to improve it. So I'm curious for you. I have my experiences. I mean, I think a lot of people who are interested in this topic have all their different experiences that motivated them towards trying to understand this? Was there some type of impetus or incident that occurred or something that's happened that said, wow, there's some problems here. Things aren't operating the way that I think they should. I want to focus on this a little bit more and see how I can help.
Yeah, I feel very underqualified now. This is, you told me about your doctorate in this forthcoming doctorate, masters in leadership. I haven't got any of that. But it's all derived.
It's all theory. I'm just learning theories. It's all you have the application.
No, everything I talk about is derived from my experiences and what I'm seeing around me, talking to people. I've been an advisor to companies, the individuals behind them for many, many years, as well as, you know, fighting cases, discrimination, unfair dismissal, whistleblowing cases. But the thing, I mean, if I reflect back on my journey, it has been, as I said before, very entrepreneurial within the legal world. It's such a conventional world when I entered into it. It still is. So many precedents, so dictated by what's come before. And for me to build the employment and discrimination departments that I did in my first firms, and that's all I did actually. I built, wherever I went, I was building these departments. That meant a rejection of the conventional, as in a rejection of the established roles. They were largely in commercial law. I put a business plan on the table and spoke to the partners and the firm about how that would enrich the firms that I was in. And we collaborated, and this is where the concept of what I speak a lot about, the architecture of career progression, of a job role. It's so important that there's a collaboration between the individual and the organization in doing that. And that sort of whole concept was born from my own experience. I was fortunate enough to be part of organizations that gave me that space. So when I'm looking at what can organizations do to cultivate that, to assist with that sense of agency, autonomy in the way that we work, they can create spaces, even if it's micro spaces, because the processes are particularly tight, in order for individuals to do that, because that is what leads to invigoration, and that's what allows organizations and individuals to flourish together.
So if I'm hearing correctly, it's taking the perspective of, okay, you're hiring somebody to do a job, right? So they're coming in for a specific type of role, but it's just you're providing them with a general framework, and then you're allowing their personality, their interests, their ways of working, their work styles to kind of fill in the rest of the blanks, and you're giving them the autonomy to make that role personal.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be an alignment, I think, between the individual's aspirations, their goals, objectives, their strengths, alignment with the organization's goals and objectives. And it's not to say we're all to work in silos. Community is so important in the way that we work, and there can be a shared culture, shared objectives, boundaries, pillars. But I'm saying within that, we need to give space for that individual as well to evolve, for the job role to evolve. And that's that's something we were talking about. The notion of smashing conventions, breaking precedent, is not about breaking things that work, but it's about being agile and allowing forward motion, because that's something that people and organizations also need for so many reasons. People need to feel that. They need to feel progression in order for them to feel that their work is worthwhile, that they are learning. Also, we need to remain relevant and current to serve people better. If we operate in a way that law did kind of 20 years ago, where it was always perceived, it still is in some cases, as a kind of stuck up profession. We're providing a service for people. We need to do that in a practical, commercial way that suits today's society and the economy that we're in.
So there's a certain sense of adaptability, of kind of not being stuck or too rigid, and becoming flexible and being able to adapt to the environments around you and continually grow as you progress in your career, and be aware of your surroundings. Basically, that's what it sounds like, developing situational awareness within a workplace.
Yeah,
It's really
Yeah,
interesting. And then I love the concept that you're bringing up of, it's really, it's, to me, it sounds like value-based leadership. It's focusing on, we have these certain values. We're going to hire you based on, do you meet this set of criteria for our values? And then
yeah.
you can bring your personality into it, and you can make the job whatever it is that you want, as long as you fit our organization's value base.
Yeah. I mean, I don't often quote neuroscience or neuroscientists because that is not my area of expertise. But I happened to be listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a fantastic neuroscientist. I've got her book on order. Can't remember what it's called, but Tali Sharot is the name of this lady, neuroscientist. She was speaking about a study that had been conducted. I think the question was, what is your association with happiness? This was put to a number of people. And number one was to have meaning and purpose in life. Number one. Number two was that people feel agency and control over what they are doing. That was number two. I think social connection was quite high up, and income was relatively low. So it's important. It's important for that invigoration as well as that forward motion.
Yeah. It brings a lot of insight into the changes that we see in the workforce these days. And I think what we are stuck in oftentimes as a culture is this old, maybe 1950s style of workforce of, the number one is income, is the money you're making. Number two was your ability to progress within a certain company or organization. They want to know that there's opportunity for growth within the organization. And then way down is having a sense of belonging, a sense of, am I making a difference, a sense of purpose. And now that's all been flipped, and people are seeking purpose. They want to know, is the work I'm doing meaningful? Am I helping other people? Am I making a difference in this world? And that is our modern, that's the modern wants and needs. But it's taking a bit of time for the world to catch up. And I don't know how it is in the UK, but I know here in America, especially in the law field, it seems like the law field slowly progressing. Not to bash the law field here in the US, but it's sort of slowly slowly progressing towards that, and it's lagging behind the rest of the corporate culture world when in terms of changing to meet modern demand.
Right. We've only just got out of paper.
Yeah.
During COVID times, we had to kind of accelerate that change and get everything kind of digital. But no, it's it's been an industry, a profession, and not to lawyer bash or industry bash, but it's been one that's been slow to move in terms of the approach and the attitude around and the distinction between, okay, we're a profession but we're providing a service. When I went into these firms as a younger lawyer, even to build these departments and to create this new practice area, it wasn't the done thing. It doesn't sound that radical now, but It was almost like lawyers were perceived as being above the business development. It was a bit scrappy, to have to go out there and get your own clients.
Right.
But I mean, I'm from a very entrepreneurial background. My father came to this country, to the UK, from the tiny island, Cyprus. And he worked, he did loads of jobs. He was a waiter. He worked in a chicken factory for a stint. He then opened a fish and chip shop, which is our national cuisine here.
Yep.
And then he went on to open a hairdresser's. So I didn't realize it when I went into law, but I was able to bring all of that into a very different world. And, when we started our firm, my partner Matthew and I, we had that approach. We wanted to be really multifaceted with our recruitment, as in align the technical with people that have a diversity in skills, whatever you want to call them, soft skills, power skills, essential skills, but also diversity in professional and non-professional backgrounds. you know, because we knew that that would really enrich the organization.
And I was thinking, as you were talking before, about what you've done and how you've brought in this types of cultural shifts into law firms. I was thinking, I was curious of what their reactions were at first, because I know people are typically pretty uncomfortable with change, which I think is a universal issue, right? We deal with that no matter where you live. And so I could imagine that these organizations or these law firms were fairly taken back at first, or maybe needed some selling on why this is good for them when you brought this information into them. Did you receive some pushback when you would present these options to them or these ideas to them?
Yes. You know, going in there, I was incredibly enthusiastic, strong at work ethic, but very conscious also that I didn't want to go in there and say, you know, I've got a great idea and this is how I'm going to change the firm. I was conscious to look at what would benefit the firm and how I would align what I wanted to do with that. And, you know, of course, there was some pushback, particularly from senior partners, because I wanted to collaborate with them so we could give this full service to the existing clients of the firm. Everyone was really possessive over their clients. That was their currency. So not everyone was receptive to that. But I learned, I had a rule and I still have it. It's called the no shame rule. So, you know, I've worked in a lot of male-dominated environments before I set up my own firm. And actually, I'm showing my age here, but when I first went in, you know, I had to attend, or I wanted to attend, these networking events, you know, because I was there to develop business as well as do all of the lawyering. And there was still, they didn't call them this, but they were pretty much male-only events. So whether it was going to the races, which is kind of horse racing, or you know, some other sporting event, you know, it would be known that it was just men that went to those. But who was attending? They were the decision makers of the potential clients. They were the CEOs of this company and that company. So when I, you know, if we were sitting around the table and having a business development meeting, I felt the need to say, I should be at that event because I'm here to develop business. I was providing justification, but also it was part of almost kind of a daily battle in a good way, right? My efforts towards making things more equal and changing things was in that daily way. I wasn't going to raise a grievance. I didn't sue them, but I did say, this is why I should attend, with the knowledge that that would pave the way for other women to attend these events, because it was so ridiculous that it, you know, even then, I'm not talking 50 years ago, there would be this thing that only men were supposed to be going to these events. And I started going to those events, and other women started going to these events. And I don't know, I can't remember whether it, you know, generated any business, but that almost wasn't the point. The point was, again, that forward motion, that pushing forward, as well as the thing that absolutely didn't sit right, that just wasn't fair, it wasn't equal, it's frankly discriminatory.
Yeah, no, you're breaking down barriers that are important, that need to be broken, but somebody has to step up and be a social justice warrior and step in and do that important job of saying, hey, I'm not going to stand for this discrimination or this inequality anymore, and I'm going to show up, and I am of equal value to the rest of you. So that's good for you. Bravo. That's amazing. I love that you did that and had the courage to do that. I think we all say, you know, this should change. This should stop. We need to do this. We need to do that. But so many of us are afraid to take that step and say, I'm going to be the one to just break down that barrier and not do it in an aggressive way, but just show up and be your authentic self and say, I'm here. I don't have a problem being here. So bravo to you for that. I love that. So there's been a few, and this kind of reminds me, and I'm curious if this falls in line. There was a term that you used called preferred discomforts. And I imagine it was pretty uncomfortable going to some of these male-owned or these male-only events in the beginning. Is that in line with this preferred discomfort of making those changes, or tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, so I came up with this phrase preferred discomforts because, you know, it's meant to distinguish between, okay, you know what you really don't want to do, right? We shouldn't be doing the things that we absolutely don't want to do. But we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't not do something because we're fearful of coming out of our comfort zone. So, you know, when you're on the precipice of something and you feel that there is going to be some thrill from it and you're going to grow, and it's going to be potentially invigorating, but you hold back, that's what I would describe as a preferred discomfort. Because, you know, you've got that thrill. That's why it's preferred. And so, you know, if we stay in our comfort zone, in whatever the setting, you know, my version of a comfort zone might have been, okay, just remaining quiet and acting like a lawyer of my qualification at that point. But I feel like I've tried to apply this, even growing up. I can think of instances throughout my life where I've applied it, and I think we all can, you know, where we operate outside of it. I think that everyone has an appetite for this, you know, and we might have varying appetites, but I think we all have it. Because I think that feeling of invigoration is really necessary for our happiness and our motivation. You know, if things stay the same, if we stay inside our comfort zone, even if we don't realize that actually we're not that happy in that space, you know, I think that's dangerous, and that's why this whole thing of preferred discomfort is so important in every respect, and it's important in work and in life. And at work, we can cultivate that. Organizations can cultivate that by encouraging people to evolve, the people within their organization, to talk about, okay, what's the progression plan for you? You know, how are you going to move forward? How are you going to evolve? How are we going to change up your role? Even if it's kind of a sideways move, even if it's not, you know, that traditional trajectory upwards. What are we going to do to mix things up? That keeps things interesting. You know, that keeps us alive. And that's why I think it's so important. Every time I've done something that's felt a bit uncomfortable and I've pushed through it, you know, I've been happy for that. I have felt invigorated and alive.
Yeah, that is always just a great reminder that you're alive. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. Every time that we step into those comfort zones or outside of those comfort zones, it's just it's a beautiful process of growth. And not to sound cliche, but they always say that the most growth is on the other side of those comfort zones. So I love the idea of preferring discomfort, or using that discomfort as an indicator of like, oh, this is good for me. I'm gonna use this discomfort as a motivator for me to grow and to change and to become a better person or a more learned person, whatever that may be.
Yeah, you know, I was really proud of myself for coming out with this phrase, and then I Googled it, and it turns out it's out there. This notion of preferred discomfort seems to be out there, like with a lot of things, you know, which means that I think it resonates.
It's out there, but I think that you made a new phrase with it, right? So you've changed it a little bit to a way that just shows us that, you know, discomfort is not a bad thing. I think people hear discomfort and say like, okay, I'm going to avoid that. But preferred discomfort is kind of a different mindset of, hey, I'm going to prefer this. I'm going to prefer this discomfort, and I'm going to go for this and know that I'm going to be growing and safe on the other side of this discomfort. There's there's a group of people I watch on YouTube called Yes Theory that their phrase is seek discomfort. So they're constantly looking for opportunities for growth and putting themselves in uncomfortable situations so that they can connect with other people and learn and expand their who they are. And it's a beautiful. I love what they do on Yes Theory. It's great.
Yes Theory.
Yes Theory. Yeah, they travel the world and they put themselves in uncomfortable situations. They go to the countries that people are saying, oh, that's the most dangerous country in the world. And they'll go there and they'll go connect with the locals and see, oh, wait, there's a beautiful culture here. And there's people here who have so much joy and lessons to teach us. And
yeah. That's
outside of, yeah, it's beautiful. And, speaking of the discomfort piece as well, I actually made a post yesterday of how uncomfortable I've been over the last week,
what have you
exploring
been up
myself.
to?
Well, there's an assignment that I have to do for this. It's the final assignment for this class I'm in, and it's the leadership development plan.
Okay.
And it sounds lovely and easy until you really dive into the work. And it's a very basically 15 to 20 pages of looking in the mirror is how I
Wow.
described it.
Okay.
And that means
It's
seeing,
your development plan, right?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So it makes sense that this program is starting at this place where you have to learn yourself first before you can help others, which
Yeah.
totally makes sense. But it's just not easy. Taking a look at yourself and really evaluating not just your strengths but your weaknesses and the times that you get intimidated by other people
Yeah.
and the areas that are uncomfortable and the areas you don't like about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And I realized for so long of how long I've not wanted to look at some of these areas, and I've
Yeah.
just wanted to pretend like they don't exist. But I know doing this assignment on the other side of this is growth.
Yeah.
And putting together this plan, it means that I have to take some steps forward for myself in my personal and professional journey. And that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I know what comes on the other side of this, and I know that means I'm going to be better for this. So stepping
Yeah.
into that, it's a preferred discomfort. I need to prefer this discomfort.
Discomfort. That resonates actually because I went to Mumbai, India in June, so very recently. And I went there with this fantastic group of global leaders. That's what we were all calling ourselves, global leaders. With an organization called Common Purpose, which focuses on cultural intelligence, cross-boundary leadership, which is all about, being accepting and agile around people who have different ways of learning, different ways of being, different ways of operating, past the typical characteristics of race, sex, or whatever. But I went to Mumbai to address this question: how are we going to shape the workforce for the future? And it was such a fantastic classroom. We went to all types of organizations, not-for-profit, big corporations, government agencies, and it all felt uncomfortable because it was this new world. And we were speaking to so many different people from so many different walks of life. But there was this, it was so energizing. I came back and I thought, right, I'm going to just launch into answering this question and addressing all these issues and doing whatever I think is necessary to bring all of these things to light. And it was that kind of invigoration. And there, everyone that I met had this energy, and they were all unified in the want to, to prosper, move forward, for the economy to grow there. It's a fast-paced environment, and the demographic there is young, so they're pumping loads of energy and resources into the education, trying to bridge that gap. Right. But within that they were all referring to the fact that they wanted to feel invigorated. They wanted agency in what they were doing, alongside and within that unity. Yeah. They all had the same broad goal. And I came back from that and from being in such a different environment. I mean, it took me about 15 minutes to figure out how to cross the road in Mumbai, as in like, here in the UK, I don't know if you've come here or driven here or whatever, but it's very ordered the way we drive. I go anywhere else, Mediterranean, Italy, Greece.
It's chaos.
Mumbai is another level, right? You have to literally interrupt the flow of the cars in order to cross the road. So that was kind of largely, that wasn't in my comfort zone. I discovered
that's intimidating.
It was. I just kind of buddied up with, the local guys that were next to me and just kind of crossed the road with them. And I, even things like you can order like the vehicles, the tuk-tuks, we call them, the kind of open, you can order one of those on Uber. I discovered.
That's amazing.
But no, I'm steering completely away from the point. But it was, I mean, that was a sort of energizing experience, and the whole thing. And part of what we're talking about as well is almost converting some of the negative mantra to positive, like things like imposter syndrome. I was trying to look at that in a positive way, you know, as in, especially if I'm the only, if you're the only one of something in a room, maybe imposter syndrome is heightened, but actually it can be a positive. You know, we can flip that to, you know, nurturing that and thinking, actually, you know, if I speak louder than that voice inside saying I don't belong, then it's okay. I can overcome that, you know?
Right. You break that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I think there's a great metaphor there with crossing the street in Mumbai. I think there's some great metaphor for, you know, you expect to go straight across and make it easy, but all of these unexpected things are coming your way that you got to kind of stick and move, jump around. It's never a straight line to get to your goal in business.
No way. The traffic is unbelievable there. But yeah, I'm going to write a piece about that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think it's a great metaphor right there for reflects the rest of the world and the business world. You're never going to get somewhere in a straight line. You got to jump around, go backwards, go forward, move around to the left, right.
We should collaborate working together. I love these kind of road analogies.
All right, perfect. So there was a couple things that you had brought up that I also was looking at. You related creating the ownership culture, and one of the things that you related it to was the Greek Cypriot kitchen. And can you tell me a little bit about that? It triggered some thoughts in me, but I want to hear what that means and what was it like in a kitchen like that? What does that mean?
Well, you know, it was busy, it was hot, so it does sound odd. Leadership lessons from a Greek Cypriot kitchen. This is the notion that we can use our life lessons and apply them to leadership. So just taking like a really quick step back, you know, I give talks to universities, so Gen Zers, right? And a lot of them haven't been in the workplace yet, or maybe they've done a, you know, kind of sandwich year or something, but they haven't been right in the workforce. And I, you know, in an effort to say, look, you don't have to be in a traditional leadership position. You don't have to be a boss or a manager in order to exercise that leadership mindset and that entrepreneurial mindset. You can take that from your own unique experiences and almost be a leader from day one. That's what I'm trying to encourage, because it is all up here. So leadership lessons from a Greek Cypriot kitchen, that was about my experiences growing up. So, you know, we had on a Sunday, we'd have loads of people around. And it's not like, it wasn't opulent, but, you know, it was important that we had loads of food on the table. That was the thing, because we wanted to present the best version of our home. Hospitality was so integral, and it's still integral in my life, you know. And that meant, you know, all this preparation, this want to serve everyone that came and give them the best of what we had at any one time, you know, and applying that to leadership and applying that to work culture. That really is with the thought that we apply the principles of hospitality to workforce. Wow. How can we serve others in the way that my family and I served those guests that came around on a Sunday? And in order to cultivate that, I think individuals need to feel that they have a personal stake in the success and the well-being of any organization that they're at. And then it feels like home, right? If someone comes to see me, even if it's not in a physical sense, you know, or if I'm having a meeting with someone I am providing a service for, I want to give them everything. I want to give them the best version. I want to go above and beyond. And I want to serve my colleagues in that way as well, you know, because it's incumbent on me to do that. And that's what was behind that piece. I was really reflecting on all of those experiences and thinking, actually, that is the way I saw it when I entered the workforce. I had that notion. It was so inbuilt within me that I was able to exercise that.
It's such a beautiful reflection. And concept to think about, and I can, the imagery is there. I can picture it, and I understand the impact that could have on a workplace of having someone feel like, I'm here to take care of you. What can I do for you? Let me serve you. Let me make sure you're comfortable. I mean, I could totally see that, and it makes so much sense. And the impact that would have on your employees of them wanting to take that same approach, that same ownership. You're setting a precedent for the culture of that we take care of our own here, and that we have certain standards here, and we're always going to go above and beyond for the other person, for other people. I love that.
Yeah, I really, I would love to just enlarge a community around that, where we look at what are the life lessons that we can apply to leadership, workforce, because there shouldn't be, and I think we're all aware that the distinction doesn't have to be so stark, between the professional and the personal. Those platforms can operate, they can serve, one can serve the other. We can take that. There's so many. I mean, I do it with humor as well, because I just find it funny that I'm taking leadership lessons from the Greek Cypriot kitchen, but also places that I've been. I mean, I wrote a piece for leadership lessons from Mumbai, leadership lessons. I went to Naples to visit my brother-in-law lives there. And I went to a really well-known pizzeria. It's been around for kind of hundreds of years, I think. And it's a family-run business that's been through the generations. And the leadership lessons from one of the best pizzerias in Naples was about the fantastic way that they were able to balance tradition with innovation, even down to creating a new pizza base, but they were still honoring all the family traditions, but they weren't being shackled by what's come before. They were moving forward, and they were expanding the brand. They've opened a place in New York and in different parts of Italy, and they've got kind of pizza stands. So there's so many things that we can all think of, places that we've been, people that we've been inspired by. Yeah, everyday things that we can apply. There doesn't have to be a distinction.
I mean, you're really expanding the way that I'm thinking about all of this, and it's so interesting. What I'm realizing is that I think organizations tend to play a role based on what they feel a workplace should look like. And it's sort of this, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's like a very sterile environment that's structured, and everyone's supposed to behave a certain way, and it lacks identity and authenticity. And what you're talking about is bringing a personal touch, a sense of warmth to a workplace that makes people feel comfortable. It gives a sense of identity and helps you to be remembered. We talk about what we remember from people is not what they say, but how they feel, how they make you feel.
Maya Angelou,
right. So this is exactly what you're talking about, is bringing a sense of feeling and emotion and identity to a workplace. It's so important. And I don't think it can be emphasized enough, is that if you want to be successful these days, people have to feel like they belong. They have to feel a sense of connection to that workplace, or it's just another building you're going into and doing a job, and you're going home, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. And it's, I mean, I've drafted them myself, the mission statements of who we are, all of that. And it's difficult for that to always resonate with people. So thinking about how we can apply what we go through in life to work, that's the thing that people understand. And it's also, I've changed a lot over time, in every way. I'm embarrassed to admit the fact that I used to go for interviews, for partnership interviews, and I would remove my wedding ring, right? When I was going for these interviews, before I started the firm at larger law firms, I've removed my wedding rings, no mention of children. I had a daughter at the time, got two now. And I was kind of presenting still this really kind of, I'm here. I am here to lawyer and to build business, full stop. And that's it. And it's partly as well to do with, the times that we were in. back then, you know, we're talking, I don't know, 12 years ago or something. And still there was, you know, there were stereotypical assumptions being made about women of a certain age, which I wanted to avoid. I mean, I'm so embarrassed to admit it, but that's what I did. And it was to make that distinction as well between personal and what I thought, the armor I thought I needed to wear for my professional life. So when we started the firm, it was so refreshing because I put that in the bin, and I openly spoke about the fact that I wanted a second child. Openly spoke about everything, you know, not kind of, you know, disclosing my deepest, darkest secrets, but you know, it was about being whole, presenting as a whole person, as well as, you know, providing a great service to the people that we were serving, you know, building that culture. And it felt so refreshing and honest.
Yeah. There's a sense of professional vulnerability is what I've called it before, where you don't go into too much detail, but you are vulnerable and you express who you are. And there's that authenticity that shows up that makes us memorable and makes us impactful. So I love that you were able to recognize that and then able to make those changes and have that courage. So I think that's really what it takes, is courage to make those types of decisions, to show up authentically.
It's so important. People see through the BS. I think people see through it if you don't operate with that honesty, you know.
I think people see through it. It may be in retrospect, but in the moment, for whatever reason, you know, we all have that little radar that goes off of like, there's just something off about this person. And it's because you're connecting with an inauthentic version of that person. They're not being themselves. And I think that it just speaks volumes to our culture, though. Unfortunately, we all feel like at times that we have to play a certain role that doesn't feel genuine to ourselves. And until we can grow enough and become wise enough and courageous enough to break that, we'll be stuck in that cycle. It's not easy to be your authentic self. You know, it's presenting a flawed person to other people, which we perceive as bad, but really our flaws are what make us beautiful.
Yeah, I read a piece, another leadership lessons piece, a couple of weeks ago. Leadership lessons from, I think, people who don't say that they're sorry or something along those lines. But it was partly to do with that thing of, you know, presenting as an unflawed individual or even an organization, you know, which is anyway a collection of people. And that's derived from, you know, experiences coming across people, probably enacting that myself, where, you know, you don't want to admit that you've done something wrong. And that's part of, you know, presenting this kind of perfection, you know, but people appreciate it so much. And within that piece, I gave examples of good things that have come out of companies announcing loud and proud apologies and why am I sorry and what am I going to do to rectify it.
There's a book called True North that is written by a guy named Bill George. It's a great book. It's a lot about authentic leadership, but it talks actually about organizations that have made huge mistakes and that have actually, it gives you the two sides of it. So the ones that have made huge mistakes and didn't own up to their mistakes or make a public announcement and just pretended like it didn't happen, and how they actually all failed because of that. That mistake took them down, versus the ones that said, hey, we made this mistake. We had this person act unethically. They're gone. This is what we're doing about it. This is how we're going to make it right. Yeah. And those are the companies that ended up thriving.
Yeah.
It's also in a book called Good to Great, also discusses that same topic as well, which is, it's just so important that, again, there's a level of authenticity that comes with an apology.
Yeah. And again, I'm writing notes, by the way, of all these books that I've got to read and these things that I've got to watch. But it's also...
All right, I got another one for you.
Oh, God.
Go ahead. Well, no, you go first, and then I'll tell you the other book.
No, I was just going to say, just reflecting on that thing of the stark distinction that we may have made before between professional and personal, because the lack of apology as well, it crops up in our personal lives when things fester, when you don't address an issue head on, or, you know, the person doesn't apologize for it. But no, I'm open to more book recommendations. That's what I'm here for.
Oh, perfect. There's one I think that you'll really appreciate, given what you talked about with the Greek Cypriot kitchen. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh,
And it is I think you'll really appreciate that book. It's very interesting. It's written about a restaurant owner who became the #1 restaurant in the world, and how he did it, not necessarily through the food, but through the unreasonable hospitality that they provided to their staff and to the customers.
Right.
And it's just going above and beyond to make
Right.
people feel special.
Oh, what a great title.
And yeah, it's a great book. Great book.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. We're wrapping up?
Yeah. We're wrapping up. You can tell on my face?
Yeah, stop talking.
Yeah. No, I mean, this has been such an interesting conversation, and I really hope that we can stay connected and collaborate on things moving forward, because you've got so many different interesting perspectives, and not just interesting perspectives, but the way that you portray them and the way that you provide that information to us is really digestible, and I love that. It's just, you make complex situations simple, and you help me understand it. For a simple guy like me, you help me understand it.
With a master,
I appreciate it. Like I said, it's just theory. It's how much can you read is all that a doctorate is. So is there anywhere that you want to direct people, anything that you want to plug? I know that you're working on a leadership series, so I would love to hear a little bit about that and to share that with anybody who's listening.
Yeah. I mean, first I want to say thank you for having me, Blake. I really enjoy your show, and I love the title, by the way, Workplace Wonder. I don't know how you came up with it, but it's brilliant. So thanks. I've really enjoyed the past, 45 minutes, just flown past, just chatting. So thank you so much for having me. But the Leadership Lessons series is that is almost kind of a community. I want everyone to come together to reflect on what our leadership lessons are, what our life lessons are that we can apply to leadership and work. We've also got a program that's built on the pillars, some of the things that we talked about, the alignment with our personal, professional, the ownership leadership mindset, the preferred discomforts. Those are all pillars of a program that is bespoke for individuals and organizations. So I guess if I'm plugging anything, those are the two things.
And where can they find you? Is there a website or a place you'd like them to go?
There is a Nikki Avraam website. It is, it's just nikkiavraam.com. Yeah.
Amazing. That works. Well, thank you again for joining me on this. And I want to thank everybody who listened live on LinkedIn. This is going to live on my LinkedIn page for the rest of eternity, or as long as LinkedIn will last. And this will also be in a couple weeks. It'll be where you can find all your podcasts. It'll be in audio form. And I want to thank everybody. And we have some exciting shows coming up here in the future. But for now, anybody who's in the US who's listening live to this, you're never supposed to date your podcast, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So for us here in the US, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And Nikki, again, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Just